You never expect your life to shift on a quiet Tuesday afternoon in the cereal aisle, but that's how mine started to change. I was standing there, weighing the pros and cons of brand versus something that didn't taste like regret, when I noticed a man walk by. There wasn't anything particularly remarkable about him. Early 40s maybe, slim, that kind of absent-minded air some people have when they're always thinking about something bigger than whatever's in front of them. He nodded politely. I did the same, and he moved on. But there was something about him that gnawed at the edge of my memory. I couldn't place it, but I'd seen him before. Somewhere. I pushed the cart forward, chalking it up to small-town familiarity. You grow up in a place like ours, and everyone starts to look like someone's cousin or old teacher. Still, the image of his face stuck with me longer than it should have. When I got home, Amanda was in the kitchen humming. Something from the 70s she never quite knew the words to, chopping vegetables like she hadn't a care in the world. "Everything okay?" she asked as I came in. "Yeah," I said, setting the bags down. "Just ran into someone familiar." Couldn't place the face. She didn't look up. "Probably someone from church." "Maybe," I said. Back then, I wouldn't have thought twice about it. Amanda and I had been married nearly 15 years. No dramatic love story, just steady days and mutual effort. We weren't flashy, but we were solid. Or so I thought. The next time I saw that man was outside the art center downtown. I was passing through on the way back from the hardware store when I saw him standing near the front steps, talking to a small group of people. One of them laughed, that kind of exaggerated laugh people give when they're trying to be liked, and he smiled, calm and comfortable. That's when it clicked. He was the new art instructor. Our town paper had done a little blurb about him arriving from the city to teach classes for adults. "Urban artist comes to share his talent," or something like that. Amanda had clipped the article. I remember because she'd pinned it to our fridge for a week, right next to my doctor's appointment reminder. I didn't think much of it. Amanda's always been into painting, sketching, that kind of thing. She called it her escape, and I never got in the way of it. I figured the guy was just part of her world, the one filled with paintbrushes, canvases, and people who wore scarves in the summer. But once I recognized him, I started seeing him everywhere. Coffee shops, bookstores, out at the park sketching oak trees like they held the secrets of the universe. Always with that same detached grace. I'll admit, there was something about him. Not in a threatening way. More like the way you look at someone and know instantly that their life has always been different than yours. He was the type of man who probably read poetry before bed and never worried about mortgage rates. Amanda began mentioning her art class more, saying things like, "It's really pushing me out of my comfort zone," or, "You should see the way he talks about shadows and light." I smiled, nodded. I didn't feel insecure, just distant from it all. I suppose the cracks never start as cracks. They start as subtle shifts. Quiet pauses between familiar words. New phrases in your partner's vocabulary. Or the way someone glows after a class that never seemed all that exciting before. I'm not saying I knew then. I didn't. Not really. But something in me had shifted. A quiet little nod in the gut. A flicker of awareness I chose to ignore because I believed in Amanda. In us. And because, if I'm being honest, I didn't want to be the kind of man who suspects his wife of anything. I wanted to believe I'd built something real, strong enough to last through bad days and wandering thoughts. Turns out, belief and truth aren't always the same thing. I'm not the jealous type. Never have been. I've always believed that trust isn't something you check up on. It's something you give. You offer it freely, and if you're lucky, it's honored. If not, well, you deal with that when it comes. So when Amanda started spending more time at the art studio, I didn't question it. She said the new instructor, the man I'd seen around town, was offering a workshop series that could really help me grow. Her words, not mine. "His name's Daniel," she said one night while rinsing the dishes. "He studied in Florence." Can you imagine? I nodded, drying a plate. Sounds impressive. He's got this way of looking at your work and seeing what you meant to say, even if you didn't know it yet. I gave her a small smile. Sounds like a magician. She laughed. Sometimes it feels like he is. That was the first moment I felt it. Not suspicion, not yet. Just distance. Amanda talked about Daniel like he was something more than a teacher. A guide, maybe. A spark. It wasn't in what she said. It was how she said it. Softer, like she was remembering something even as she spoke. She started dressing a little different on class nights. Brighter colors. A new necklace. Small things. The kind of things a husband notices but doesn't bring up if he's trying to be respectful or avoid looking petty. I didn't say anything, but I started staying up later on those nights. Not intentionally. Just found myself sitting in the living room, pretending to watch something on TV while listening for the sound of the door. She'd come in flushed and energized, talking fast about techniques and compositions. She was excited, sure, but also elusive, like part of her hadn't quite come home yet. Then came the weekend trip. "I'm going to Fairgrove with the girls," Amanda said, tossing laundry into a suitcase like she'd done it 100 times. "Just 2 nights. We're going to do a little shopping, maybe hit that art exhibit at the historical museum." "Sounds nice," I said. "You driving?" "No, Carol's picking me up. Saves gas." It all sounded harmless. Normal. And I had no reason to question it. Until the next day, when I bumped into Carol at the hardware store. She smiled as we passed in the aisle, one of those friendly neighbor smiles, and I said, "Did you all get on the road okay?" She looked confused. "What do you mean?" "For the Fairgrove trip," I said slowly. Carol paused, then gave a tight, awkward smile. "Oh, I didn't end up going. Had a family thing come up last minute." I nodded, trying to keep my face neutral. "Hope everything's all right." "Yeah," she said quickly, then added, "Amanda didn't mention that." "No," I said. "No, she didn't." We parted ways a few moments later, and I walked out into the sunlight, that same knot tightening in my stomach, this time not so quiet. Now, I'm a simple man. I don't jump to conclusions, and I don't start fights without facts. But I do pay attention. And when a man who's always trusted starts feeling like someone's rewriting the story of his life behind his back, well, he takes notice. I went home, sat on the porch with a cup of coffee, and stared out at the neighborhood like it might answer the questions running through my mind. Maybe there was an explanation. Maybe Amanda went alone. Maybe Carol forgot to mention a change of plans. Maybe. But there's always that moment. That one moment when all the small inconsistencies start lining up like dominoes. And you sit there, staring at the first one, wondering if you really want to flick it. That was my moment. And I knew, one way or another, the truth was coming. I didn't bring it up that night. Amanda came home Sunday evening, suitcase in hand, cheeks pink from the wind, or maybe something else. She kissed my cheek, told me she was exhausted, and went straight for the shower. I just sat there at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around a lukewarm cup of coffee, wondering how many things a man can ignore before he stops recognizing himself. That night, while she slept soundly beside me, too soundly, if you ask me, I stared at the ceiling, wide awake. I thought about how trust isn't just about what you give, it's also about what you protect. And it hit me. I'd been so determined to be the good, steady husband that I hadn't allowed myself to see what might be slipping right past me. The next day, I drove to Fairgrove. Not to spy, not to dig through hotel registries or interrogate bellhops. I just wanted to see for myself, maybe find some proof that would calm the storm in my gut. What I found instead was confirmation. No hotel clerk had seen Amanda that weekend. Not by name, not by photo. The museum didn't have record of a group tour or tickets under any of her friends' names. And when I drove past the art studio back in town, there was her car. Monday, noon. Workshop supposedly over. And her car was parked right there. I didn't go inside. Didn't need to. The message was clear enough. It's strange, the way heartbreak doesn't always arrive like an explosion. Sometimes it shows up as a whisper. A simple, soft unraveling of everything you thought you knew. I went home, put the kettle on, and sat in the same chair I'd been sitting in for years. Everything around me looked the same. The chipped mug, the photo of us on the mantel, the steady hum of the refrigerator. And yet, it all felt foreign. I knew Amanda well. I knew her tells, her nervous habits, the way she bit her lip when she was hiding something, the way she avoided eye contact when her mind was somewhere else. I had seen all those signs for weeks, maybe months, and convinced myself they were nothing. But now I knew. And here's the thing about knowing. Once you do, you can't unknow. You can't pretend you didn't see what you saw or feel what you felt. Not if you respect yourself. Later that evening, she came into the kitchen, still drying her hands with a towel. "You okay?" she asked, her voice light. I looked at her for a long moment before answering. "Yeah," I said. "Just tired." She smiled, kissed the top of my head, and walked past me. I watched her go, and in that second, I realized something important. I still loved her, but I didn't trust her. And between those two things, a man has to choose. I wasn't ready to say it out loud yet, not ready to confront her. But I'd taken the first step. The blindfold was off, and whatever came next, I'd face it head on. Because that's what men like me do. We don't crumble. We rebuild. It's funny how silence between two people can say more than all the words in the world. Amanda and I went through the motions that week. Morning coffee, polite smiles, the occasional kiss on the cheek. You'd think everything was fine, two people living a calm, ordinary life. But I'd never felt more alone in my own house. She told me she had another class Wednesday night. Longer this time, she said. We're working on portraits. It might run late. I nodded like I always did. And when she left, I stood in the hallway, listening to the echo of the door closing behind her. That's when I picked up the photo album. The old one, the one from when we were still just dating. Amanda smiling at some roadside diner. Me with more hair, less gut, and that dumb leather jacket I thought made me look cool. There was one picture of us on the beach, her head on my shoulder, sun going down behind us. We looked young, stubbornly hopeful. The kind of hope only people without any real scars can afford. I sat with that album for a long time. I wasn't angry. I want to be clear about that. Anger's a wildfire. It burns everything in its path. But what I felt was more like erosion. Slow, steady. Something sacred washing away. That night, I didn't wait up. I let her come home to a dark house and a sleeping husband. Let her tiptoe past the truth she thought I hadn't noticed. But the truth has a way of sitting heavy in the room, even when no one says a word. The next day, I stopped by the art studio. Daniel was outside, painting on the sidewalk, like some artist in a movie. He had headphones in, didn't notice me at first. But then he looked up, and his smile froze for just a beat too long. "Joe, right?" he said, like we were acquaintances, not strangers tied together by circumstance. I nodded. "That's right." He wiped his hands on a rag. "Can I help you?" "No," I said. "Just passing through." But we both knew I wasn't. I didn't stay long. Just enough to look him in the eye and let him know I knew something. Maybe not the whole story, not the details Amanda had carefully tucked away, but enough. And sometimes that's all a man needs, enough. When I got home, I found Amanda in the living room sketching. She looked up, surprised. "You're home early." "Figured I'd take a half day," I said. Felt like being home. She smiled, but her eyes darted away quickly. "That's nice." I stood there a moment longer, then walked to the kitchen. There's a strange kind of strength in restraint. And not accusing, not yelling, not slamming doors. Just observing. Letting the person show you who they are, one choice at a time. Over the next few days, Amanda kept her routine. Smiles. Light conversation. A kiss before bed. But it all felt like a play being performed for an audience that had already left the theater. Then came Friday. She said she had an overnight retreat planned with a few of the ladies from the art group, out in the country, just for fun. I asked who was going, and she rattled off a few familiar names. I nodded, smiled politely, and said, "Sounds like a nice break." She hugged me, a little too tightly. "I love you," she whispered. And I said it back, not because I still believed it, but because I needed to hear how hollow it sounded. Sometimes that's the only way to accept the truth. She left with her suitcase. I watched from the window until her car disappeared down the street. Then I picked up my keys and headed out. Not to chase her. just to see what truth would show up next. There's a strange clarity that comes when you stop guessing and start looking. I didn't have a plan when I left the house that morning. No GPS coordinates. No grand scheme to catch anyone in the act. I just needed air, the kind that fills your lungs and makes you feel like you've still got a say in your own story. I drove around town a while. Got coffee. Walked through the park we used to visit on Sunday mornings, back when Amanda would bring her sketch pad and I'd bring a newspaper I never really read. We used to talk about retirement, travel, things we thought we had all the time in the world for. I thought about how many of those things we never did. How many we never will. On the way home, I stopped by the local co-op to grab a few things. That's where I saw them, Amanda's friends. The same one she told me she'd be spending the weekend with. They were standing outside the bakery section, laughing about something, paper bags in hand, casual and unhurried. No weekend retreat. No getaway. Just regular Friday errands. At first, I thought maybe they'd changed plans. Maybe Amanda had decided to go without them. That's what trust does. It looks for excuses on behalf of the people who don't deserve it. But then Carol spotted me. Her face stiffened just slightly. Just enough to notice. "Joe," she said. "Didn't expect to see you." "Same here," I said, my tone neutral. "Thought you all were out of town with Amanda?" They exchanged a look, one of those half-second glances that says everything without saying a word. Carol smiled, tight. "Oh, no, Amanda didn't tell you?" "She said she had other plans." I paused. "She told me she was with you." "Oh," Carol said, eyes shifting. "Must have been a mix-up." She wasn't a good liar. Amanda had chosen the wrong backup. I nodded, gave them a polite smile, and left the store with my heart hammering quietly beneath my ribs. No more guessing. No more maybe. The last card had been played, and now it was just me, the truth, and whatever came next. I didn't drive home right away. I pulled into the overlook off Highway 8 instead, the spot where Amanda and I used to sit in our early years, back when everything still felt new. It's a beautiful view, even now. The hills roll out like old stories you forgot you knew. I sat on the hood of my truck, sipping coffee gone cold, thinking. Not about revenge. Not about confrontation. Just about what a man is supposed to do when the person he built his life with quietly steps out of it. The pain was sharp, but not chaotic. It had shape now. It had weight. And when something has weight, you can carry it. You just have to decide how. That night, I didn't call her. Didn't text. Didn't ask where she was. Instead, I pulled out an old notebook and started writing. Not angry letters. Just thoughts. Feelings. The story as I saw it. Something for myself, and maybe, one day, for closure. By the time Amanda came home late Sunday evening, I was already settled on the couch with a book I wasn't really reading. She looked tired, worn in a way that didn't come from travel. "Hey," she said, setting her bag down. "Hey." She came over and kissed me lightly on the forehead. I let her. Sometimes you need to feel the lie before you can let go of it completely. "I missed you," she said. I looked at her and nodded. "I know." But what I didn't say, what I didn't need to say, was that the woman I had married had gone somewhere I couldn't follow. And she wasn't coming back. I spent the next week moving through life the way a man does when he's already stepped outside of it. Amanda didn't notice, or maybe she did, and pretended not to. That was becoming our rhythm lately. Both of us pretending, in our own quiet ways, that we hadn't noticed the change in the temperature. She kept talking about her art. About Daniel. Not directly, of course, she called him the instructor now. Maybe she thought if she left his name out of it, I wouldn't notice how her eyes lit up every time she spoke about class. But I noticed. I noticed everything. She'd started carrying herself differently. More confident. More free. And I didn't fault her for that. Whatever she was looking for, in the paintings, in the attention, in him, she'd clearly found it. But it wasn't with me. One evening, we sat at the table finishing dinner, grilled chicken, green beans, something frozen for dessert. Normal stuff. The kind of meal you'd expect two people to share without a single crack in the surface. But then I said it. I ran into Carol the other day. Amanda didn't look up from her plate. "Oh yeah," she said, trying to sound casual. Yeah, I said. She mentioned she hadn't gone on that Fairgrove trip after all. Her fork froze midair. Just for a second. Most people wouldn't have noticed it. But I'm not most people. I'm her husband. She looked up, forcing a smile. Oh, right. I think I mentioned that. Plans changed last minute. You didn't, I said gently. But it's all right. She blinked, as if unsure of what I meant by all right. Look, Joe. I held up my hand. Not in anger. Just to slow things down. I don't want to have a fight. I don't even want an explanation. I just want to talk. She sat back, cautious now. I looked at her, really looked. At the woman I'd built a life with. At the woman who used to bring me coffee on Sunday mornings and draw smiley faces in the steam on the bathroom mirror. She still looked like her, but something had gone quiet behind the eyes. I know about you and Daniel, I said. Calm. Clear. No thunder, no drama. Her face went pale. I'm not here to humiliate you, I continued. I'm not going to throw your clothes on the lawn or call your friends and make a scene. That's not who I am. But I'm also not going to keep pretending I don't see what's right in front of me. She opened her mouth, maybe to deny it, maybe to apologize. I'll never know. I just kept talking. I've always been faithful to you. Not just in body, in heart, in effort, in presence. I've worked hard to give us a good life. I've shown up every single day. Amanda's lip trembled, but no words came out. I think somewhere along the line, I said softly, you started needing something I couldn't give. Maybe attention. Maybe passion. Maybe just something new. And instead of telling me, you went and found it somewhere else. A long silence filled the room. She looked at me the way a person looks at a closed door they don't have the key for. I'm not angry, I added. But I'm not a fool. And I'm not a doormat. What does this mean? She finally asked, her voice small. It means I'm not going to fight you. But I'm going to let you go. Her eyes welled up, but she didn't protest. I deserve to be with someone who chooses me every day, I said. Not someone who's halfway somewhere else. She covered her mouth with her hand. Maybe to stop the sob. Maybe to hold in the truth that was already out in the open. I stood, took my plate to the sink, and rinsed it like I always did. And just like that, the conversation was over. No screaming. No storm. Just a quiet moment of truth between two people who had run out of places to hide. Amanda moved out 2 weeks later. There were no dramatics. No police. No friends choosing sides. She packed her things quietly, mostly while I was at work, and left a note on the kitchen table that just said, I'm sorry. I read it once. Folded it. Slipped it into the back of my desk drawer. Not because I wanted to remember it, but because part of me needed to see, in her own handwriting, that she at least acknowledged what she'd done. That weekend, I found myself standing in the backyard, staring at the old lawn chairs we used to sit in after dinner. They were weathered now, the paint peeling, the cushions thin. But I couldn't bring myself to throw them out. There's something about a chair that's been sat in for years. It holds your shape, even when you're gone. The silence in the house felt different now. Before, it was tense, suspicious, full of the things left unsaid. Now, it was peaceful, if a little heavy, like a deep breath after a long run. The truth is, I didn't fall apart. And maybe that's the surprise of it all. I kept going to work. I kept mowing the lawn. I fixed the leaky faucet Amanda had been after me about for a year. And I made coffee every morning, just like always, only now I drank both cups myself. People started to ask questions. Friends. Neighbors. Some politely danced around it. Others came right out and said, Where's Amanda? I didn't get into the weeds. I just smile, steady and calm, and say she needed a different path. That was enough. A few months later, I heard she moved in with Daniel. Didn't surprise me. Folks like that move fast, like the paint will dry if they don't commit to something quick. I don't know if they're still together. I don't check. Whatever she's doing now, she's doing it without me. And I'm all right with that. Because here's what I've learned. When someone cheats, they don't just betray you, they betray themselves. They trade in something sturdy for something shiny. They chase excitement and forget about the beauty of consistency. Amanda didn't fall for Daniel because of anything I lacked. She fell because something in her was restless, and instead of turning toward me, she turned away. That's not on me. And I refuse to carry guilt that doesn't belong to me. These days, I've started painting. Nothing fancy, just a few brushes, a little cheap acrylic, and some canvas from the craft store. At first, I did it out of curiosity. But lately, I've realized it's something else. It's healing. It's quiet time. It's mine. Funny, isn't it? Amanda went searching for herself through art and lost our marriage in the process. I found a little piece of myself in that same place and started rebuilding. I still believe in love. Still believe in trust. I know those things are worth holding on to. I just won't hand them out so freely next time. And there will be a next time. I don't know when, and I'm in no rush, but I know one day I'll sit beside someone who sees me, truly sees me, and chooses to stay. Not because they're trapped, or bored, or afraid, but because they want to. Until then, I've got peace. And a quiet kind of strength that comes from knowing I stayed true, even when she didn't.